Off and Cuero had one of the most memorable showdowns in PRL history last week. But despite Mauricio being so close to a win multiple times, he was denied yet again and had to settle for second after a last lap pass. However, we cannot forget Mies because due to his pole in Japan, he is now tied for second. Things look as tight as ever as we get ready to watch round 8 of the PRL Le Mans series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing eSports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Joseph Tebben. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Known as the Temple of Speed, Monza's long straights will force the drivers to trim out their cars today. Let's head to our track guide to find out a little bit more about this place. Welcome to Monza. This track has a major place in racing history, not just for the legendary races, names, and cars that have been here, but because it was the third purpose-built car racing circuit in the world. It's often discussed and reverenced among fans, and especially by Italians who have nicknamed it the Temple of Speed. In fact, the Ferrari fans here are so famous for their devotion that they have been dubbed the Tifosi and never fail to show up in droves. While the real world offers only 3 feasible layouts to race on due to safety, in iRacing, the inclusion of the oval and the lack of safety concerns gives it a stunning 9 versions drivers can choose from. The modern GP layout is of course the most well known with its long history of hosting the Italian Grand Prix. But the oval and combined circuits allow those who thirst for more speed to satiate that craving with its insanely high banking. Indeed, incredible velocities are a staple of just about every version you can race here. Draft battles are not uncommon no matter which car you're racing, but the inclusion of the chicanes makes using an outbraking maneuver a much more tricky way of overtaking. The circuit is notorious for drivers getting tangled up with each other while running side by side in these slow and cumbersome corners. In fact, one of the greatest dangers for drivers is the first few laps when the field is still clumped together and attempting to navigate them 2 and 3 wide. While there are other modern circuits with high-speed straights, the fact that Monza sits inside the Royal Park just north of Milan and is still tightly lined with trees heightens the sense of speed here. All in all, Monza is unmatched in its history, thrills, and great racing. Its significance in motorsports history and culture is sure to be unchallenged for years. Monza is, of course, one of the more legendary tracks in the world of racing, having held a lot of history. But, Joe, what do you think it's going to be like taking these LMP2 cars to this track today?
Well, just like taking any car around Monza, it's always a good time. And the long straights usually provide some fairly exciting racing with lots of drafting. We're here at a 3.6 mile Grand Prix configuration of the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, or 5.79 kilometers, as our European friends would say. We got 11 turns, including some famous names, Curva Grande, the Lesmos, Ascari, and this very race will be 60 minutes long, 1 full hour of LMP2 racing.
They'll certainly have to be thinking about fuel during that hour, I'm sure, how those long straights will give that draft up. But as always, today's race is brought to you by SIMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at simsa.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Now, in terms of the championship, as I mentioned, Modoff ahead, but only by 3 points ahead of Cuero and Mies. Those two are the main rivals, top 3, basically trying to duke it out in these final few rounds. Of course, in third place, or fourth place overall, we've got Munoz. I know it says Cuero there on the 3rd spot, but he is 22 points behind, with David Holland back there in 5th, and then Nathan Lewis one spot back in P6, 40 points down from our top spot. What about the team points for today's race?
Well, in the team standings, it's a little bit less close than the individual driver's standings. In top of the standings, we have Punto CL Racing, the red team, which has 384 points on top. Right behind is actually the team of our championship leader, Delta Sport U4K. Then in third place, we have the blue team from Punto CL Racing. Fourth place is Pure Sims eSports. And then in fifth spot is the green team from TQ Engineering.
Now, for viewers who haven't watched before, let's go over the race details real quick. We are in round 8 out of 10, so it's right down to the end of it. 60 minutes, as we mentioned, and it is open setup. And as you would expect with the top-end vehicles that they are driving, there's a lot of different changes that they can make in the car to try and find some speed. They have some incident limits as well. A drive-through happens at 13 and a disqualification at 18 with bonus points as well on hand, including one up for grabs right now for the pole position, which is held by Nathan Lewis. Rodrigo Mies actually just jumped himself up to third in the past few seconds. So he is getting into things with his first timed lap. Cuero on the outside of the front row. Now, we were talking about it, how this is going to be some very interesting racing, especially compared to considering last week they were at Suzuka, which is such a technical circuit, Joe. I suspect that today may be a little bit more strategic.
Definitely more strategic. It's not entirely like oval racing, but there are similarities because there's going to be a very powerful draft on all of the long straights around this track. So you might actually end up having to time your moves. And if you're in a train of one car getting the draft of the car ahead, who's getting the draft of the car ahead, who's getting the draft of the car ahead, it's actually surprisingly difficult to make moves in the draft when it's all combined like that.
Yeah. See how that winds up. They tend to break into those trains from what we've seen here in the PRL and pretty much every series that comes here. So who will be among who as we watch Christian Eisler cross the line, and he does not go quicker that time through. Seeing if we got any of our other front runners coming up. I see Chris McGrath in the 379 in fifth. His first one was a 35.3. Let's see if this one's going to be any quicker as we watch Galaz cross the line. Non-lap for Chris, unfortunately. What about David Holland in the number 25? Also seems to have had an off track. Now, I was kind of worried about some of those off tracks because we saw 13 incidents and you'll find yourself running through the pits. That's going to be costly through here. I mean, from my experience, Joseph, it seems like there's a number of places that you could pick up those 1Xs.
Yeah, track limits 1Xs are, frankly, the bane of every iRacing driver's existence. It really seems to strike at the European F1 circuits like here and Spa. They're very aggressive with those 1Xs, so it might be worth it just to slow down a little bit, try and stay in those lines so your lap actually gets counted even if you lose maybe 100th or 1,000th or a 10th of a second.
Munoz didn't go any quicker that time by, so we jump over to Uribe, sitting in 10th position as he streaks across the timing line. Another lap that did not count. So they've got 6 minutes left to go. This is Ferraris down and around. I'm watching Eisler as well, who's been bumped to 11th. He is way out of position here, stuck in the mid-pack.
And just to show how unfortunate these off tracks are, Nathan Lewis, our current pole sitter, he set one clean lap and that put him on pole, and his other two are disqualified for going off track. So that'll show you that even if you are the fastest driver on track, you're still going to have to keep in the lines.
Rath now down to 7th, not able to improve. Cuero's coming around. Oh, but he is way off. In fact, he's so far off, he clips the gravel to the outside. But that is Rodrigo Mies, his teammate, pulling a little bit of a draft. That lap not going to count for him either. Paulo Munoz, another one with an off track, and he'll stay in 5th place. Because of that lap being ruined and the exit off the corner being ruined, Cuero's going to have to head back into pit lane. He abandons it, knowing that he might as well get some fresh tires on it. What about Rodrigo Munoz? As, the 17th place driver comes down to the line. He's had pretty much every single lap has been clean for him, but so he also needs fresh rubber as he pulls to a halt. So Horatio Quinn up to 7th with his quickest lap at a 1:35.3. Things starting to get tight now. I just noticed, Joe, that David Holland has moved himself up into 2nd, and we have 2/10 separating the top 4.
Yep, at Monza with so few corners, only 12 real corners. It's those small little margins that you can pick up that's really going to make the difference. Like you see, between Lewis and Holland for 1st and 2nd, there's only half a tenth between them, and that might just be one corner on the track that makes the difference.
McGrath once again, and I was watching Holland to see if he can go any quicker. The answer was no to that one. McGrath can't either. Mies is back out on his outlap, but Paulo Munoz is pulling a slipstream. The 3-2-1 has a good shot if he's kept it clean here. Oh, and he improves to a 34.8. That's going to get him up into 4th. But Rodrigo Mies, excuse me, no, he was not on an outlap. That put him on pole ahead of Nathan Lewis by 1/4 of a 1/10 of a second.
If it was an outlap, it was the fastest outlap in the history of all time. But Rodrigo Mies, again, only 1/3 of a 1/10 of a second. There's absolutely minuscule margins at the top of the table.
Incredible stuff. So that's Byron Daly in the number 60 coming through. Fredes now, who is in 8th place. Not able to go quicker than his 35.2. Is about a 10th off that time by. A lot of drivers are within very small range of each other. So if you can find a 10th or 2, you're likely to make up a spot, maybe even multiple spots in some cases, as we witness David McDonald now coming around in the number 6, pulling a draft off of his brother. Let's see what this is going to do for him. Oh, plenty. 36.1 for him. David McDonald goes up to 16th from that.
The only driver who has yet to qualify is Eric Luke in the 7:09. He hasn't left the pits, and with less than 3 minutes to go, he is not going to get a lap in this session.
So looking through here, that's Lowendick, not able to improve that time by. He's coming around for another one. It was Cuero that I was thinking of, who should have been on an outlap that time through, but now he's got a slipstream from his teammates. So let's see if the 79 can do anything here. No, excuse me, he is on the outlap currently, is the number 79. So let's watch Mies. That one, not going to be a quick one for the 88. But
yeah,
we'll give him that go.
I was watching Mies. He came through Ascari, and he had an absolutely massive wiggle. I don't know how he saved it, but he's still alive, and now he actually appears to be holding up his teammate.
Yeah, we've jumped away from him, but he did get held up a little bit by a car that almost spun in front of him. Ferraris comes around out of Parabolica, trying to improve on the 35.6. That's not going to do it. That lap did not count for the yellow and black machine. So we look at Christian Eisler this time. Since we last looked at him, he's improved greatly. He's up to 6th in that 7.27. So the Punto CL blue car comes around the final turn. His quickest is a 35.1 right now. What's this going to be? He's got a shot at it. Crosses the line. It's a 35.2, just a 10th short. All right, so Cuero and Mies still together and appear to be using their teammate status to try and find something out there. We're watching Cal Quinn, one of the blue drivers, sister team to the team of Mies and Cuero. We'll hop on board with Mauricio. Probably still a little bit miffed about losing out on that victory last week, even though he's been very, very consistent. He has lost the points lead, and this isn't going to be quicker that time by 36.1, unfortunately. Rodrigo Mies also had that one, did not count. They continue to work together, but this is going to be their last lap to do it as we are under 10 seconds to go. Kenny Rodriguez, the last to start a lap, and Pablo Uribe will be the first to take the checkered flag. Oh, it almost looked like he wanted to go into the pit lane for a minute and then decided against it, but he didn't go quicker. He was about 2/10 off. Behind him, a couple cars heading into the pits that didn't like what their times look like. Sean Duhamel will be next for Team Collab Racing. The 617 swinging it wide off of Parabolica and then back into the pits as he doesn't think he can improve. What about Christian Eisler in the meantime? He's going to try it, but he's not going to go any faster.
Yeah, I'm not seeing much improvement out on track from anyone. I wonder if, frankly, the track is too rubbered up, too warm, and maybe the conditions are not ideal right now.
It is a little bit warm out there. It's not drastically so. 29 Celsius, that's in the mid 80s in Fahrenheit. Oh, and Cal Quinn finds something. But it does, oh no, it does improve him. Excuse me, it just popped up to 6. Sometimes it takes a second for our timing to register it. Mauricio Cuero down into the line. It's a 34.789, and that is going to put him up into the second row. Still, it'll give him a shot, even though it is not pole. Right now, that belongs to Mies, who looks set to hold on to that. I don't think he has anybody out there quick enough to challenge him in these final few seconds. Yes, indeed, there's Kenny Rodriguez, our last of them. So another bonus point to Rodrigo Mies. He's been racking those up where he needs it. Let's go through our starting order with Mies on the pole and Nathan Lewis starting in second today. David Holland will be in P3 and Mauricio Cuero will be in fourth. Paulo Munoz starts fifth today with Horatio Calquin in the sixth spot. Christian Eisler starts seventh, followed by Chris McGrath in the eighth position. Ignacio Fredes is on the inside of row 5 and ninth, and Ted Lowendick starts 10th.
In 11th place on row 6 is Michel Ferraris, and in 12th is Pablo Valuenza Uribe. Row 7, 13th, 14th is Sean Romig and Steve Gaori. Then it's Michael Overbay and the first of the McDonald brothers, David McDonald. Then it is Cesar Bagay, Rodrigo Munoz, Sean Duhamel, Byron Daly in 10th. And then 21st is the other McDonald of Mark McDonald, Hugo Galaz, Kenny Rodriguez, the last of our qualifiers, and not setting a time in 24th, Eric Luke will start from the back of the field.
It would appear we will have all drivers in today, so 24 car fields. It is not too long of a lap around here. Expecting cars to run into each other relatively quickly with just over a minute and a half to try and cycle through in a 60-minute race. I'm sure they will see some lap traffic before all is said and done. So now you have to wonder, especially if you're one of those drivers that is up towards the top. For instance, our driver fighting for the championship, Cuero, still looking for the win. If you were in his shoes here, Joseph, would you try to maybe just get in behind those lead cars and then try to save fuel, or would you want to try and push your way up to the front and lead?
Well, if I was in his shoes, I would be nowhere near the front. But assuming that I did have the skill of Mauricio Cuero, I wouldn't get too aggressive early on, because you say he is fighting for the championship, and if he takes himself out in turn 1, that's going to be awful for the championship. So if I was him, I would be taking my time and trying to work my way through the front cars.
You know, you bring up a good point too, because the stewards were talking to the drivers pre-race about that coming into the first chicane, the Rettifilio. I mean, anybody who's watched F1 kind of knows what to expect, but for our viewers, I mean, explain why this is such a treacherous chicane.
Well, it's a long straight into a tight chicane, and as we see in many tracks that have that sort of setup, when you got 24 cars on the opening lap spread over barely even 1,000 feet, there's bound to be some contact.
These things being so aerodependent, especially in a track that is based on your top end speed, I'm assuming that everybody's going to try and tiptoe their way through, but that's sometimes easier said than done. We'll see if anybody gets tripped over each other and winds up facing the wrong way or missing some body parts. Of course, there's always the option of trying to cut through the first chicane, but you get a penalty automatically here on iRacing if you do that. And with it being the first lap, it gauges the penalty on your split times. And since there are none set, it is very, very harsh usually, unfortunately. So not the best route to take as we see the drivers come out of Ascari chicane and down towards Parabolica. Already seen a couple in the back trying to weave and warm the tires up. You and I were talking about that before the race, Joey, that it seemed like these cars take a bit to get the rubber up to temps.
Yeah, while these aren't open wheel cars, they are carbon fiber, very, very light vehicles. And there's not much weight pushing the tires down, so they're very light. The tires take a while to warm up, so if you're in the back, you got space to warm up your tires, that might be an advantage.
See if anybody's managed to get it, because the Porsche pace car getting ready to let go. Mies should not have too long to wait as the flag tends to come out pretty early. And indeed, he is off quickly. And look at his teammate. They must have been on the radio because Quero is already around the outside and looking at second place, getting past both Lewis and Holland. Single file, but Lewis is going to look to the inside in the orange and white machine, seeing if he can get that second place back as they all break into the Rettifilio. In fact, he's almost getting into first place as they accordion together. And we've already got an incident. Two of the Punto CL blue cars are off. Looks like most everybody's going to be able to get around them, but that has caused a big gap in the field.
Yeah, everyone made it through. Paulo Munoz was one of them. Doesn't seem like there's too much lasting damage, but these cars are going to have some gravel shaking around at the bottom of them.
It'll take a while to clean up in that first chicane for sure. And there you can see the second group being led by Cal Quinn, now in fourth position. Top three breakaway in a critical moment with Mies, Quero, and Lewis getting themselves out of draft range of Horatio Calquini. He's going to have to do it on pace from here. There you see the distance from the podium back to the rest, as it looks like Lewis is going to give another try on Mauricio Quero. He's since lost out when we weren't looking because of that incident. He's going to try and go around the outside, almost dips it into the dirt, but still somehow gets the spot.
I do wonder if that was an off track, though. He did go very, very wide out of the first part of Ascari there. But it seems like he... Oh, someone is. Big wreck on the backstretch.
Yeah, that was David McDonald. And I think Galaz may be involved in that too. I see Bagai with a problem. So a number of drivers unfortunately getting involved in that one. Let's take a look at this incident first. This is out of Ascari. Yeah, Bagai is trying to take evasive action and unfortunately just gets caught up in it. And there's, you see Hugo Galaz as well getting tripped over these spinning cars.
Yeah, that's one of the unfortunate things that can happen on the opening laps when the cars are so close together. You get one mistake and it just accordions into 5, 6, 7 other mistakes, and we got cars out of the race already.
Quero's in. Did Quero get a black flag for jumping the start?
I thought that might be the possibility, but I thought he passed on the outside. I'm not the most experienced with the rules in this sort of thing. But Mauricio Quero must have got a black flag. That must have been a jump start.
No, and this is going to hurt him greatly in the championship because he still has to make a stop. He can't, even if he did take service, it would not get him from here to the end. Wow. Let's go back to third in the meantime as Horatio Calquin leads Ferraris and Eisler. Also got a few hangers on behind them. Romig, Lowendick, Munoz, and Uribe goes back to ninth effectively.
Of course, this is a home race for Michel Ferraris of Italy, so he is definitely going to want to get a podium here at his home track.
I can only imagine that feeling a little bit more pressure to perform here today. And they have now been promoted to a battle for the podium as well. Calquin inheriting that spot from Quero. Stopping in. Rodrigo Mies in the meantime up at the front, setting the fastest lap of the race. A little bit of gaining here from Michel. Is he going to be able to attack? No, he's going to back out of it by the time they hit the brakes. Behind them, though, a little bit of side-by-side action between Lowendick and Munoz. Ted's going to get himself into seventh. 72 still stuck in it, though. Behind his teammate Romig. Munoz once again looking on him with a great run out of Curva Grande, but deciding not to stick his nose out. If we could, we still have Dougie's special camera for onboard Ted. See if he's still got our faces plastered all over that thing. See if we can dig that one up, and he's still trying to get some extra time. Unfortunately, being caught by Munoz here. Munoz to his right side as they come down into the braking for Ascari. Deep on it for Paulo. Is he going to be able to complete it as they go wheel to wheel? And unfortunately, the grip is not there for the white, blue, and black number 321. This has slowed them down enough that Uribe is gaining quickly. Another shot for Paulo down to the inside of the Parabolica as Uribe watches from behind. Lowendick doesn't defend, but does he need to as he powers off well, exiting the final corner.
Munoz could not get the power down. He was stuck on the curb on the inside of the Parabolica, but it doesn't seem to matter very much because he's got the draft of Lowendick right now.
As we see that helmet cam pop up, Munoz down into the corner, finally gets it done into the first chicane. It took him a few tries, but he's now back to P7.
After that unfortunate incident at the start of the race when he was off into the gravel, it looks like he is setting off on a comeback drive already.
Absolutely. We've lost a few already. Rodrigo Munoz is out. David McDonald has been taking extensive repairs. Not sure if he'll be able to return. Chris McGrath is unfortunately gone. And Hugo Galaz is still having the team try to bang away at that machine to see if they can get it in working condition. Meanwhile, as we watch this group being led by Munoz, actually starting to stretch himself away pretty quickly from Lowendick and make himself some space here. He wants nothing to do with the rest of that fight. Ahead of this all, Rodrigo Mies has gapped Nathan Lewis by about 3 seconds. When Nathan tried to make that pass, I couldn't help but think, what cost did he cause for himself trying to overtake in the middle of that chicane? Because now he doesn't have the slipstream of our leader, and it doesn't look like he has the pace.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was a little bit impatient, but you got to go for the move when it comes to you, even if it doesn't pay off, and he's going to be hoping that he can pull off some kind of miracle in the pits a little bit later to close that gap.
Certainly has to be trying something here to see what he can do. Maybe it'll come back to him later in the race as well. We don't know if his setup is better later in the run. Let's jump back to Uribe, who is now trying to see if he can attack on Lowendick. Remember, Ted was battling with Munoz just about a lap and a half ago. Now he's got to look in his mirrors because there is the number 23 of Pablo Uribe sitting roughly half a second behind. Not going to be able to reach out and get him here into the De La Roja, but maybe could set himself up for later.
Ted appears to be falling back the order a little bit, but he said about the same time as Uribe on that last lap, so it's going to come down to when Uribe can get close enough to get into that draft and hopefully push his way by.
Oh, and we got a car off in the background. That is Steve Gaori. The 56 hit the wall in a big way off of the second Lesmo. You can see he's got it going once again. Dip a wheel in the dirt here. Let's watch. Yep. Wow, that was very quick, actually. It seemed like he barely touched it. And that shot him into the wall.
So back when I used to play F1 2013 using a keyboard, that was a very dangerous corner. You get one wheel on the gravel there, and that's going to shoot you into that inside wall. So it appears that is also true on iRacing.
Meanwhile, Munoz has already made quick work to close the gap to Sean Romig. Romig's not defending down to the inside, but he's quicker in a straight line as he started to pull out as soon as Munoz went side by side. So that pass did not work. If Munoz not quick in a straight line, that's going to make these overtakes later on very, very difficult.
He is back in the draft of Romig, though. Will he send it into the De La Roja chicane? He will, and actually clear, so he's able to be later on the brakes, but he's going to have to deal with, like you said, some slowing down on the straights.
Yeah, so you have to wonder if he'll be able to get away from Romick as quickly as he could his teammate Lowendick, or if he's going to start pulling him along and have to give the position back on some of the straightaways when he outguns him. We had an off for Ignacio Fredes in the 96. I think this is a single car incident. Yeah, he just drifted wide. Don't really need a replay of this one. But he returns between the Lesmos and falls down to 15th because of his mistake.
And Monza, unlike some tracks, does not have much paved runoff. So if you make a mistake, you're in grass or gravel, and especially on iRacing, that can get very, very icy and slippy, and it takes a little bit to get back on track.
Tell you what, Munoz really doesn't seem to care if he does have a lack of top-end speed, because he's making short work of the twistier bits and has left Romick behind. Next on his hit list is going to be Ferraris, who's up to P5. That 36 car started in 11th place. This has already been a phenomenal run.
It's got to be that virtual home crowd, the I Tifosi, cheering on the home hero, Michel Ferraris. He has fallen back a little bit from the podium contention with Horacio Calquin, but, you know, it's a long race, and he could very well end up there by the end of the race.
Okay, that actually makes me wonder now if the programmers in iRacing have made it so that if you're an Italian, because they have the cheering now within the simulation, do they cheer a little bit louder if you're doing well when you're in Club Italy?
Yeah, you got to go into your sound settings, and you got to check Italian mode.
I love it. We'll see if we can get that implemented as they run down towards the Ascari chicane. He's not close enough to attack on Iser, but man, what pace does the 3-2-1 have? In just about a lap and a half, he has cut this down to Michel and could have a good shot down the front stretch. Munoz is absolutely flying.
Yeah, maybe the gravel he picked up on lap 1 has fallen out of the car, and it's lightened this Dallara chassis up a little bit, as he should get a very good run on Ferraris down the front stretch. But Ferraris also has the draft from Eisler, so like I said in the pre-race, we got a little bit of a train going on here, actually.
Yeah, he's pulling from Christian, and that's making it a bit tougher for Paulo. He'll stay in line. Approaching two of those Punto CL blue cars now. Being led by Calquin, currently in third place. Honestly, this could mean that Munoz could be looking at a podium here if he can work his way up the ladder of these three in front of him. But he's now also just about back to where he started. He qualified in 5th. He's currently in 6th. So maybe the going will get a little bit tougher from here on out.
I mean, the going is going to get tougher from here on out no matter what, as the tires begin to fall off, the drivers begin to get fatigued, and the mistakes could very well come late in the race. But as we see Paulo Munoz in the draft of Ferraris now, he's not feeling any fatigue at all.
Yep, got himself a good run out of the second Lesmo, but he's going to have to go the long way around into Ascari. Deep onto the brakes, and he makes it stick. Wow. This might become a drive of the race, but it's still early days, so who knows what we'll see with the rest of this event. We've only gotten 13 minutes down. Look at how much time he lost with that overtake, though. That gap up to Christian Eisler is already up to 1.3 seconds.
Eisler actually has a draft on his teammate now, but we're looking on screen at Paulo Munoz and Michel Ferraris again. Can Ferraris go for the move? Nope, he's too far back.
He's thinking about it, though. Now he's got double trouble. Will the Punto CL guys work together to make this all the more difficult to try and overtake? As we're currently riding on board with Horatio. Looking back from the gearbox onto the nose of Christian Eisler. Cars whoa up into De La Rogia. Tight little chicane, very tall curbs. Both of them going to successfully work their way through. So
Eisler is actually half a second faster than Kalkin. I'm looking on the live timing, so I wonder if team orders might start to come into play here.
Well, where is Quero? Quero, after his penalty, is still down in 19th and about 24 seconds back. So he's got a long ways to go before he even gets to pass anybody, unfortunately. And with a small field, I guess it's a bit of good news, bad news, because good news is he will still get more points than if it was a larger field. Bad news is it's going to be a lot longer before he can really do much in this race other than just chalk some laps in. As we watch third and fourth place come out of the final corner, leading Munoz. They're dropping Ferraris now. He doesn't seem to be able to catch up as quickly as Munoz is. Also checking in on our other front runners in the championship. Actually, we didn't quite mention Karl Modhoff not here today. He already had a did not start in round 4, so that is his drop week, which means this one's going to hurt extra hard.
Yep, we'll have to see if he can pull off some dominant performances in the coming weeks, because even with a drop week, missing a race can really put you off your rhythm if you're not racing against the same people every week, week in and week out.
Yeah, he's going to have a lot of ground to make up, and a mistake off of De La Roja from Christian Eisler hands it over easily to Paulo Munoz, now up into P4. Next for Cal Quinn, who has about a 4.5 second gap up to Lewis. Has not been able to hang on to our front runners. Let's see if he'll find himself overtaken pretty quickly by Mr. Passing here today. Paulo Munoz, 3-2-1, stalking him through Ascari and off of the chicane. Once again, he just does not take much time at all. Even if he loses time, it seems like as soon as one's down, he's got his focus set forward and he's on the attack.
And honestly, he might be close enough here to get a draft and send it into turn 1. We'll have to see if the draft is powerful enough right about now and he can stick his little Paulo Moon nose in there when we get down to turn 1.
Nicely done, sir. Nicely done. Doesn't, unfortunately, that pun does not help him enough to try and get him a chance to overtake this time by. And did we lose a spot for Romig? Yes, we did. Uribe, well, maybe not. Uribe was way too hot into Redifilio, and now he's going to be under attack by Sean Romig. These two still battling it out as we continue to watch Munoz trying to keep on to the back of Horatio Calquin. Side by side with Romig to the inside of Uribe, down into De La Roja. And Romig is going to take it back. So Uribe had a shot at it, and it didn't quite work out. Didn't see it on the screen, unfortunately. But up at the top, plenty of chances here for Paulo Munoz to get himself onto the podium.
He is definitely closer than he was last time, and he's all over the back of Kalkin now. I don't think he's going to be able to make a move into Parabolica, but I might have to dust off the Munoz pun again into turn 1. This is the closest he's been.
Question I wonder is if he can make this pass when he's got the clear air, can he start to track down Lewis and Mies as well? Does he have that much pace? Or is this just easier because he is picking off the drivers behind the top runners? Let's see, he was closer off of Parabolica this time as we hop on board, looking back from Cal Quinn. Doesn't block him off. He leaves the door open and into the braking for the Redifilio chicane. Munoz now up onto the podium for the first time in this race. We'll keep an eye on the times of that 3-2-1 machine. Try and compare it to guys like Lewis and Mies a little later on. Because now, real work starts. Have changed position where Fredes got into 13th by Eric Luke. Another one of the basic slipstream passes into the first corner.
But speaking of Eric Luke, he was the driver we talked about who didn't start the race, started 24th. And even though he did just get passed by Fredes, He's still made up about 10 spots so far in this race, which is pretty remarkable, even with a little bit of attrition.
I agree. And looks like next on his list is, well, actually, no, he just got overtaken by Gaiori as well. So.
Yeah, I cursed him a little bit, unfortunately. Gaiori nosed into the wall a little bit earlier, but clearly the damage wasn't bad enough, and he's still trucking along.
Yeah, I'm kind of amazed that Steve is as high as he is. Oh, and Eisler just got by Cal Quinn. Cal Quinn's struggling the last couple laps, 2 positions down. His teammate through, but now he's going to get a tow. And this is more what I would expect from the Punto guys here. It is just for them to maybe try and work together, use some teamwork to get that extra little speed with a slipstream.
Yeah, it is. It seems it didn't work out when they were just racing each other normally earlier because Paolo Munoz got by, so maybe they're going to strategy B, and in true Italian tradition, they're going for some team orders.
Always seems to be the case. Every time we see Ferrari here at Monza, they give it a try. Doesn't usually seem to work anymore, to be frank. So as they come out of Della Rosa, still tightly packed to one another, Ferraris is also maybe considering, I wasn't able to do it before, but Munoz was able to do it. Clearly I could pick up some tips, see if I can make an attempt, try and get up into P4. This is all happening still behind Rodrigo Mies, who leads now by 6.5 seconds, is in 7th place. Romig, remember I was mentioning before, had that battle with Uribe. Well, that's not done yet. Uribe is stalking him and staying within attacking range, but last time he outbraked himself into the Rettifilio. Did he learn his lesson this time?
Well, racing drivers don't tend to learn lessons very well, but we'll see if he can brake a little bit earlier and still brake a little bit later than Sean Romig. And he looks like he'll get a pretty good draft here. He's fairly close down the front stretch.
I'd almost argue that the fast drivers definitely learn from time to time. But as he tries to pull the slipstream, he's gaining. It's down to a single car length, but that's not close enough. He decides that it's not worth trying to risk the car into that first chicane. Maybe out of here. It is flat out through Curva Grande. He might be able to use this for an opportunity into the Della Rosa chicane. And indeed, he is closing up. But Romig just hovered in the middle of the track, it seemed, and is not going to let him have this one easily.
Yeah, Uribe is definitely exercising some patience here. And I guess that shows why he is a fast driver and I am not.
Down and through the Lesmos. They plunge towards Ascari one more time. You can see a bit of a pack behind them, but that's they're all pretty well spread apart. That's Holland, Lowendick, and Daly, who are still running in 9th, 10th, and 11th. Ascari, Uribe not nearly as close this time, actually.
Yeah, maybe he's just timing it a little bit differently. He got very close through the Parabolica on the last lap, but that seemed to hold him up a little bit. So it seems like this lap he's trying to set it up a little bit better, get a better exit out of the Parabolica, get into the draft a little bit earlier coming down the front stretch. And it looks like it is actually working out for him. We'll see if he pulls off to the side. He does. And this will be a very decisive pass by Uribe.
Gets it done. Down through the chicane. Oh, and behind them, one car has to cut through the escape road. That's Ted Lowendick, unfortunately.
And not been a great day, Lowendick.
Yeah.
And day gets even worse, unfortunately.
Now, it's a good thing that he actually weaved his way through. I can tell you from experience, for those that follow my social media, you can actually get those styrofoam bollards stuck to you in the sim. And they will hamper not just your speed, but your visibility, unfortunately. So come back live. We're still not yet halfway through this race. There's still a lot left to go. To be fair, I don't think I've really seen too many drivers that look like they've been attempting to save fuel here today.
Well, you might just be saving fuel in the draft, frankly. When you're in that low pressure air, you're using less gas. So the amount of draft on this track might actually be good for the fuel mileage for all these drivers. They want to save as much.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of if we've seen any of them who have been hovering behind someone, who have clearly had opportunities and they really haven't been taking them. Most everyone who seems to get close goes on the attack. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye out for it. Meanwhile, this is fourth place on screen, the 666 of Cal Quinn, followed by Eisler. They've pulled themselves a little bit of a buffer between their cars and Ferraris in the number 36 so that they don't have to worry about him trying to pass them should they start to fight once again.
Well, you talked about hovering behind each other, and that actually appears to be what these two teammates are doing. Eisler he's not sending it into the braking zones. He seems to just be happy to ride behind his teammate and save a little bit of fuel.
That's a good point, actually. He drops back there through the first Lesmo. Seemed to struggle. It's one of the few places where the wake of the car ahead is not desirable at this track. So now he has to make up a couple tenths to stick with them, as they've already lost Ferraris by about 1.5 seconds now in the background. I think lap traffic starting to be hit by our leaders. He's Ceso Bagay getting passed by Rodrigo Mies, but without too much drama there. You can see him crossing the line to start another lap around here. He's been unfazed by anybody behind him. Nathan Lewis, as soon as he was out of the draft, was not able to respond. Behind them in 8th position, it's Romig sandwiched. He's got Uribe in front and Holland behind here, Joe.
Yep, and that is not great news for David Holland, who wants to make a move because Romig still has the draft of Uribe. But Romig does seem to be losing a bit of pace and falling back through the field a little bit.
To his credit, he started 13th. He's up to 8th. I think some of that seems to be due to attrition, unfortunately. And we got some takers in pit lane. I believe this might be a scheduled stop. I see Luke and Gaori in.
Yeah, Luke, who started from the back. Gaori, who ran into the wall. I think Gaori is actually getting that nose repaired, the nose that he clobbered the wall with. And I don't think Eric Luke has any damage, but he is sitting in the pits for an awfully long time, so maybe I actually missed some damage on his side.
And he's getting going now. So, yeah, he could have found himself getting the car a little bit in better shape there in the pits as we continue to watch Romig try to fend off the charging David Holland. Remember, Holland started in 3rd. He's down in 9th right now. He is definitely out of position. He's one of those that I believe was involved in the incident at the very start. In fact, let's watch this up to here. I wonder if we still have that replay of the incident at Rettifilio, because we might have some time to go over it, depending on if we get an attack here from David, try to dissect exactly what happened. And nobody's really doing much on these three. These three, too, might be trying to save a little bit of petrol. So let's take a look at that replay real quick. We know Munoz was involved. There you can see him off course. Here's one of our Punto CL blue cars. So what kicked it off? Watching from above. Oh, we got tipped by his own teammates.
Unfortunately, we might have to refer to them as Punto CL for that one.
You're not the first to make that joke, I'll tell you that. And I'm sure they They do not like when it happens because sadly, that's actually what's happened many times in the past with these cars, except in the GTE cars before this season. The Punto CL drivers seem to always find each other and make contact with each other. So,
Can't fault them too much. When there's that many cars in turn one,
yeah,
there's bound to be
yeah,
someone having a problem, and it's just an
it's tough.
unfortunate coincidence.
These are big cars too. They have. The thing that amazes me whenever I hop in these things is how little visibility you have inside.
Yeah, it's like you're driving the space shuttle with a little window in front of you.
Oh, what?
It's remarkably difficult.
Got cars coming in. Not sure if that was someone trying to brake or if that was just a connection problem. That was very weird. We had a big bit of smoke. Well, we're hearing that was a bit of connection, but as they come around through the chicane, this is still Uribe in P7, Romig in 8th, and Holland down in 9th.
Looking further back. Oh, that's Holland and Romig actually not looking further back. David Holland's looking ahead, and he actually just got by Sean Romig.
Nicely done by the 25. Man, you were talking about patience earlier. That was some real patience from David Holland to try and wait for the right time. So that'll give Tim P8. Now, I wonder if we could get the cameras on that we haven't looked at much and has kind of been running on his lonesome is Nathan Lewis. He is up in second place, 8.5 seconds away from Mies, but 3.6 ahead of Paulo Munoz. Can we get that lap comparison up between the 27 and the 321 car? Because I believe Munoz has actually cut this down a little bit since he took this third position. And indeed, the numbers tell the tale right there.
Yeah, Munoz on average about 2 or 3 tenths a lap faster, which adds up to only be a 2.5 second gap right now. So with 28 minutes left in the race, that is definitely a closable gap, and Paulo Munoz could be looking at second place.
Wow. That is an impressive drive. Meanwhile, we've had another scheduled stop. Pablo Uribe is in the lane.
Yeah, Uribe probably sick of helping Holland and Romig save fuel, and he's going to let them run out on their own. He's the first in that little group to come in to take fuel and tires.
Indeed. But is he going to have a normal stop? Yep, this looks like a normal stop time. So in and out and on his way. Do we have anybody else trying to respond to him, or will we get the usual strategy of going as far as possible? This is our leader, Rodrigo Mies. Shouldn't expect him in unless we get some very strange strategy calls. And indeed, he will continue on with 27 minutes left to go. We are down to 19 cars left on the lead lap. Eric Luke is actually the last one there. He's right in front of our leader and pulling him along slightly, but will probably give way sooner rather than later. The blue flags may be advisory only, but he doesn't have many people to fight.
Yeah, honestly, if I was him, I would want to fight with that lap car just to give me something to do. Leading a race by 9 seconds is great for championship points and for your psyche, I guess, but it does get a little bit boring, especially at a simple track like this.
Hearing a call from Duhamel that he's going to be pitting in this time by. Oh, and we got a side-by-side between Fredes and Lowe and Dick. Fredes will come out the victor. That'll give him 10th.
Lowe and Dick continues to fall down the field. I wonder if he'll be coming into pit lane soon to make some adjustments.
I mentioned Duhamel, Rodriguez, or excuse me, I mentioned Rodriguez. Cuero in as well. So Mauricio taking his scheduled stop after having already been in for a penalty. He'd climbed up to about, I think it was 17th. Some of that was from cars that were pitting in front of him, giving him a spot or two along the way.
Yeah, and I watched Mauricio Cuero pull into one of those front 2 or 3 pit stalls, and that's got to be heartbreaking for him. He started 4th, and if he was just a little bit more patient, he would not be sitting in the pit lane, as Rodrigo Mies' teammate is actually in the pit lane right now.
Oh, we might be at the end of the pit window. It is a thirsty track. Mies in, Lewis in, Munoz. Cal Quinn is going to join. Yeah, I'd say this is a safe bet that they can't go that much farther.
Yep, it's a little bit of a pit party here. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Oh, Sean Romig has actually crashed at the pit entrance.
Oh. Well, it's not the first time we've seen that, but he's managed to make it to his pit stall. And hopefully he can get that repaired as we have drivers out and going now. Mies returning to the track well ahead of Nathan Lewis. Lewis is going to be able to return in 2nd place, but still about 8 seconds adrift from our leader. And Munoz, here we go. So the gap, I'm waiting for Timon and Scoring to catch up now that they have exited. 2.7 seconds. He was about a 1.5 seconds quicker in his stall than Nathan Lewis. Paulo Munoz is using everything to try and gain ground on the number 27.
Yeah, his in-lap was a little bit slower by about 0.3, but he did make up 1.4 seconds in the pits, so the gap is about the same as it was before between Lewis and Munoz. So now we're in part 2 of the race, and it's going to be full push until the end for Paulo Munoz.
And just to frustrate Nathan, that was a lapped car that you saw in Pagay, who eventually let him through, but had to have cost him at least some time down through the De La Roja chicane. Boy, Romig's hit in the pit lane must have been very big because he's still stationary down there and seems to be taking repairs. So the 71 could have ended his day prematurely, it seems.
Yeah, he clobbered one of the pit walls and actually had to get a tow for the couple 100 feet back to his stall. And David Holland as well. We were talking about his climb through the field. He is stuck in the pits still as well, getting repairs.
Oh, no. Close to 2 minutes for the 25. This is an absolute shame. So Rodrigo Mies leads 10 seconds ahead of Nathan Lewis, who is now only 2 seconds ahead of Paulo Munoz. For Lewis, he does have a friend in the form of Ciso Bagay, who is acting as a buffer between himself and the charging Paulo.
Yeah, that's what happens with lap cars. Ciso Bagay was not a friend of Lewis when he was in front, and he took a little bit of time to actually get by him, but now Paulo Munoz has to deal with the same problem, so it's going to be all about whether or not Paulo can get him at a better part of the track, maybe a straight when Ciso's feeling nice. We'll see what happens.
And to Bagay's credit, he's not fallen off super quickly. He seems to be holding decent pace, running 137s for many of the laps, but there we go. Beautiful job there from the 33. The Californian just simply lets Paulo Munoz through. Gap still hovering at about 2 seconds between Paulo and Lewis. So I'm getting word that Eisler might have a fight on his hands with Cal Quinn, his teammate. There's only half a second between them. Still plenty of racing left to go as well, Joe.
Yeah, these teammates have been stuck together all race. And I wonder if the team orders are out of the window now and they're free to battle for the rest of the day.
That's a good point. Or is it the reverse? Is it something where after the first pit stop, whoever's ahead basically gets to call the shots? They're not challenged by Ferraris behind. Ferraris lost tons of time in that sequence and is about 8.5 back. So if they wanted to fight, I'd say they've got the buffer to do so.
And I see no reason for them not to. If they just stay in formation, I don't think that would be very fun for either of them.
Bad exit there for Cal Quinn coming off of the De La Rosa chicane. Eisler can't do much with it, though. Took a little bit of a look to the inside, but then didn't press it as they come off of the second Lesmo. Struggling to get the power down compared to his teammate Horatio Cal Quinn, who has all that clean air in front of him.
Yeah, Eisler definitely seems like he's the faster one, but he just does not seem to be able to get by his teammate, whether that is team orders or whether that's just exiting wrong at the wrong places. But we'll see if he is able to make the move now. He's going to get a draft down into Parabolica, see if he can get a better exit through there down the front stretch.
That's going to be critical here. He needs to get the run off the corner, and Cal Quinn is pushing hard, maybe a little too hard. This is the best shot we've seen from Christian Eisler. Ducks to the inside. No move from his teammate to cover it off. He's just going to let him through. And Horatio Cal Quinn relinquishes P4 to the 727 of Christian Eisler.
Yeah, Cal Quinn did not put up much of a fight after that mistake. He let Eisler do a little bit of a fade to the outside and get the ideal line through the corner.
So, side by side for 8th position, Fredes being overtaken by Byron Daly from 20th to 8th place. Byron doing it just like many have in this race. A good exit out of Parabolica, a slipstream down the front stretch, and then outbreaks his rival into the chicane. As we see Daly in present time here, still ahead of Fredes. So part of the job done. Now he's got to try and P6.
And honestly, it looks like he is doing so. The 96 certainly is not gone, but Daly is pulling away just a little bit.
Still 20 minutes left to go in this race, so a whole third of the event is yet to be run. Not known as a fatiguing track, but it seems like with some of the hard battling we've seen for such a long time, it's got to take a mental wear, as another shot for Fredes means he can look to the inside. Daly decides to stay on the racing line, and that winds up being a good choice as he runs away from the number 96. Or does he?
I think I spoke too soon when I said Daly was pulling away. That is very obviously not the case. Fredes is not done with this battle. For 9th place, 10th place, it's 8th place actually, as Fredes takes the inside into the first chicane, and he's clear.
Now we're starting to see a bit of the back and forth. Oh, and he got a poor exit. So that's going to hand it right back to Daly. But yeah, I think this is where we begin to see the back and forth battles, the slipstream fights that mean that anybody could have the upper hand at any moment. When you're in the cockpit, Joe, I mean, how do you plan for that coming down to the final laps? Is there a way to plan for it?
Well, I always find that when you try and plan a draft overtake, it never works out, because you always mess up the last corner trying to get your perfect exit. You just got to go for the move when you can make it, and if you're not in the lead on the last lap coming to the line, it's unfortunate, but it is really hard to play God and play racemaker with this kind of thing.
So you're telling me take the track position instead?
That is what I would do.
See who feels that your advice is sound. And look at him weave across the track. Byron already trying to see if he can break a little bit of that slipstream, but not much doing that since these cars are so stuck to the ground. You can easily follow in the wake as soon as someone jolts to the side. On the front stretch one more time, and Fredes will have a chance to go back at him. What does Daly do? The Carolina driver is going to hold to the outside, actually, and make it easy pickings for the 96.
Yeah, pretty much a carbon copy of the move. on the last lap. I think we're going to see that repeated for a couple more laps, unless Fredis or Daly can find something and actually be able to pull away from the other driver. And I'm looking up ahead at the Lewis Munoz battle. That gap has come down to 1.7 seconds. So that battle is going to be heating up very, very soon.
Yeah, I got to think that for Munoz, it's not necessarily to be faster each and every lap. It's to be faster until he feels the effects of that slipstream. And I would think that that's going to make the job so much easier from there to get within range.
Yeah, we've seen the range is about, I'd say 8 or 9 tenths of a second is the real end of it to where you can make a move. So once Paulo Munoz gets into there, he can start being very aggressive on Nathan Lewis.
Natural DRS zone that he'll reach and be able to use the effect of the wake. Really having to crank that steering wheel. That is a perfect illustration of how tight these chicanes are. These wheels not really made to go hand over hand like that.
Yeah, that's definitely difficult, especially if you make a mistake and you let the wheel snap back on you. You got to be really, really finicky with that wheel through these tight chicanes.
Meanwhile, Munoz, who we ride on board with, probably focused a little bit more on what he's doing than what the car ahead is doing, knowing that he's got to just rifle out those laps. Last couple, 36.5, 36.8 for Munoz, who was a 36.6 and a 36.8. So pretty even last time around, but a tenth faster on the lap prior to that one.
Yeah, once Munoz got within 2 seconds, the gap seems to be staying pretty stationary at about 1.7, 1.8 seconds. So Munoz is going to be trying to maybe find some time in places he hasn't been able to, so he can actually get those last couple tenths to get in the draft.
Last time by for Munoz, 36.650, a 36.640 for Nathan Lewis. About 100th off of each other. Meanwhile, side by side between Calquin and Eisler yet again. And this time, it's not going to be an easy swap amongst them. They're going to hold each other up through the Rettifilio chicane, almost getting squeezed off by his teammate. It appears that Christian Eisler is going to have to get his elbows out. Let's see if he can do it into De La Roja, or will this come to tears and hand over to Begay to get his lap back from them? Neither one's willing to give way. Still side by side, but Calquin carrying the momentum better off of the chicane.
Yeah, I thought they were going to make contact at least 3 times through that sequence of corners. Eisler, his nose came very close to spinning his teammate as they went through the Curva Grande, but both teammates do make it through cleanly. Eisler a little bit worse off, though.
Oh, man. Big time. You can see the guy still trying to do what he can to keep his pace up, but and Ciso's going, it's supposed to be me holding you guys up, not the other way around here. 33 now starts to drop back from the Punto CL blue car. 12 minutes to go at this point. Rodrigo Mies has been in control of this whole thing. He's got 10.8 seconds over Nathan Lewis. And Lewis looked like a shoo-in for that second place very early on until we started watching Munoz pick him off bit by bit, car by car. And suddenly, he is now looking to see if he can snatch away P2 from that 27 car.
There's still a 1.6, 1.7 second gap between Lewis and Munoz. So if I was Lewis, I wouldn't be getting too scared just yet. But in a couple laps' time, he's definitely going to have to start worrying about them. And an update on our friends Fredis and Daly, who are having a very, very aggressive battle early on. Fredis has actually pulled a 2-second gap away from Daly, so that battle is unfortunately long over.
One of our championship rivals, Quero, second in the points, still down in 15th. Now he's on the lead lap, impressively. His last lap at a 37 flat, compared that to Luke, which is a 37.4. So Quero, with just under 4 seconds to go, might actually be able to get and pass Eric Luke. It depends on how cooperative the 709 is.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think that'll be the only position that Quero is making up for the rest of the race. Michael Overbay is 10 seconds ahead, but there's just not enough time left in the race for him to catch him, even though Quero is almost half a second faster.
Something that we didn't get to mention is that Overbay had to serve a penalty due to an incident in Japan last week. So if you're looking at our timing and scoring, which by the way is at GSRC.tv, that's why you're seeing 2 pit stops for the number 68. Meanwhile, on screen, this is between Eisler and Cal Quinn for the 4th position. And I just noticed as well that Lewis has, oh no, Munoz is already by Lewis.
Yeah, I looked up at the timing. I don't know how that happened. I assume Lewis blew the chicane, but if he did...
Yeah, he did. It was a Ascari. Here it is right here. The pressure is going to get to him, and the New Yorker buckled. Yeah, there was the overtake there after he had cut the corner.
Yeah, and Paulo Munoz is starting to pull away already. I'm not even sure if Lewis can stay with him.
Here's the cut course incident that caused him to be overtaken. Gonna watch it from above here. So just lock him up. Oh, whoa! It looked like he absolutely clobbered that curb. And Lewis is in. Lewis must have gotten a meatball flag.
Lewis absolutely clobbered that Italian sausage curb, and if he got a meatball flag, he's having an Italian Sunday dinner in the pits, and that's going to promote the Cal Quinn Eisler battle to the battle for the podium.
Wow. Things changed very quickly at the end of this race. Oh no, it wasn't a meatball flag. He got a penalty.
It's almost as unfortunate. He's lucky he didn't have to sit in his pit stall, but 24 seconds through the pit lane has dropped him down to 5th place, and I think that is the end of Nathan Lewis's podium hopes.
Yeah. Wow. He must have gone over the incident limit. Okay, does this up the ante for Cal Quinn and Eisler? Now that it is for a podium spot, they've got to be aware at this point. And the distance between them is about 0.7 of a second. We're running out of laps though, 1.5 minutes each. So we're looking, what, about 5 laps left?
Yeah, and Eisler is a little bit further back than he normally is from his teammate. So he's going to have to start pushing if he does want to make this a real exciting teammate battle for the podium.
They come down towards the Parabolica. I'm looking through the field at some of our other stories. And Byron Daly still, to me, is one of the drives of the race, going from 20th up to 9th. Just an incredible climb there from the number 60. However, it is not the day that Mauricio Quero was wanting. He's still chasing down Luke. He's got it down to 1.2 seconds. He's got enough time. But as you mentioned before, it's about 5.5 up to Michael Overbay. Just don't think that's going to be quite enough for him. Now, it looks as though that Sean Romig has caught up to Overbay and has got a great run here. Oh, excuse me. This is 9th place that we're looking at. This is Byron Daly. And a spin behind them. Steve Gaori off course just as there was an attack between Romig and Overbay, they're going to have to stay in line because of that car being off to the side. Gaori falls down to 13th, unfortunately. Here's the replay of Steve's spin.
Unfortunately, just lost it on entry, and when you lose it on entry in a car like this, you are not going to be saving it.
He had to wait for everybody to get by. He did the right thing, but it's always painful seeing everybody streak away from you. Back up to the battle between Lowendick and Daly for that 9th position. What about the pressure on Byron here? Can he survive that?
Ted Lowendick has had more downs than ups this race, but if he can get by Byron Daly, he'll definitely finish this race on an up, and he had a great run out of the second part of Ascari. Could he potentially send it into the Parabolica here, or is he going to be patient?
Meanwhile, side by side between Eisler and Cal Quinn. Eisler sends it in deep. Can we get the over-under for Horatio? He's going to try it, but he doesn't get the launch off the corner. The 666 gets back into the slipstream. Which side are they going to choose? He tries to cover off the inside. He's drifting the car over and barely. He's going to find space. Horatio off to the right side, but he has lost momentum with that move. Ooh, some sneaky stuff from Christian Eisler just to keep his teammate from getting the desired line. I don't think the 666 is going to be too happy with the post-race meeting after that move.
Neither do I. That was a little bit iffy on my screen through the Curva Grande. I was very worried that these teammates were going to come to blows, but they did make it through alive. Now we're going to see if Carl Quinn can take the fight back to Eisler. For most of the race, it's been Eisler behind, but now it's Colquhoun on the other foot.
Lowendick just lost a spot to McDonald instead of taking one over Daly. I think he made a mistake in the Della Rosa chicane. He was, in fact, he was on an attempt trying to get past Daly that kicked that off. Let's see if we can get a replay real quick. AC, that's the green and black machine of Lowendick to the inside of Daly's orange and white car, and it put him offline just enough that there goes Mark McDonald. Sneaky stuff to be able to get through. And this is going to promote Mark up into an opportunity to take 9th away from Byron Daly. As we come back live, he's down to the inside into the Parabolica. They're going to be cutting an extra big hole in the air down the front stretch, and that's going to be great for Ted Lowendick, who is probably going to be wanting to overtake both of them. Here we go as Mark McDonald stays to the inside. Byron Daly once again to his left. Both of them trying to send it deep down into the Retafilio chicane. Nobody willing to give way. No advantage for either kart. First, they actually make a little bit of contact and then unfortunately get into the back of Byron. Ted Lowendick, not expecting them to be that slow, doesn't get the shot that he wanted.
These cars have been fighting super aggressively, and that allowed Mark McDonald to get up into the position he is now. But now he's the car leading this pack, and Ted Lowendick is going to try and replicate what he did and sneak by if McDonald and Daly get together again.
Sorry, Eisler had another look at Cal Quinn, and into the Ascari chicane. He braked a little bit early. Is he trying to set him up for here, maybe? I don't know about that. He probably wants to try and get it off of Parabolica. Cal Quinn, seeing the gap close behind him, knows that he's almost a sitting duck here. If Eisler can stay close enough behind, off of the final corner, we're coming down in laps, and look at him weave back and forth, attempting to break the slipstream, and it might actually be working, as Eisler's not gaining.
It worked for Simon Pagenaud at the Indy 500 in 2019, so bit of a oval style strategy for Colquhoun, trying to do anything to keep his teammate off of him.
Very wide on the second apex of Retafilio. Compromised himself, and Eisler knows it. He's going to get to the inside, but that's going to be the outside, as actually almost drifts out into him, coming off of the Curva Grande. He's got a nose ahead, but he doesn't have the inside line or the first one. He's got the inside for the second one, but it's shallow. Using the better exit, Cal Quinn comes back at him, covering the inside. Side by side, they go through the Lesmo. And Cal Quinn, once again, can't keep him back. Eisler up to P3 yet again. This is getting very feisty.
This has been incredible side-by-side racing for, I don't even know how many laps it's been now, but it's showing no signs of letting up as once again, Kalkin can't quite make it work into Ascari, but he's going to have a good exit down the straight to the Parabolica. No, he's not. That was actually a mistake on the exit there, and that's going to allow Eisler to pull ahead.
I think we're going to be on the white flag lap for these two this time by. Mies just went by not long ago. So looks like they've separated slightly. Let's take a look at sixth place where Uribe is being chased by Ferraris and Fredes. In fact, Michel is going to block the inside. Going to see if he can keep Fredes behind him, but the over-under offers a great opportunity, but he has to keep from drifting out into the yellow and black machine. And now it's a drag race as they both run through the gears down the pit straight. Fredes with a slight advantage, but he's going to give the draft to the 36 behind him, who gets back to the racing line and is deep on the brakes, very deep on the brakes, and it doesn't quite pay off in the end.
Nope, you got to be deeper on the brakes to make the outside work into the first part of the Redifio chicane, and unfortunately Ferraris was not quite close enough to do that.
Up towards Parabolica as the clock ticks to 0. Rodrigo Mies came into this third in the points and 3 points back from Modov. But Modov isn't here today, and Quero was unfortunately sent to the back of the field at the start. So Rodrigo Mies is going to win and most likely take the championship lead. Paulo Munoz, what a run up to second place. How far down the field was he before this? Because he had to have overtaken at least 10 cars there.
I think he was actually in a completely different country, but somehow he got back to Italy and he got on that second step of the podium. But the battle for third is not over. Kalkin, it is over. I think he's too far back.
Eisler holds on for a well-earned podium here today. You got to feel for fifth place, Nathan Lewis. He'll finish in fifth when all is said and done, when he was looking at, if not second, at least a third. And only a top 5 in the end. Uribe ahead of Fredes. Lowendick is still fighting with Daly. Oh, and he's trying everything. He's trying to go way off course to get as much speed as he can, but it's just not going to be there. Daly going to get himself up into the 9th spot ahead of Lowendick and Romig.
And the home driver, Ferraris. We thought he might have a shot at the podium early on in the race. It's only going to be an 8th place finish, but it is a gain of 3 positions over the course of the race, so not all is lost for the home driver.
Quero settled for 13th. That's going to hurt him. We're going to take a quick break, though, as the last of our drivers trickle across the line. We'll come back with driver interviews as well as the unofficial results, so don't go away. Welcome back to Monza. Round 8 was an interesting one, and though it wasn't exciting up at the front for Rodrigo Mies, who took the victory by 13 seconds, he's changed the complexion of this championship with this round. Paulo Munoz, who also will be gaining a few spots in this, managed to second place. Remember, he was 22 points behind the leader in this one coming in, so he is going to be closing in significantly. Christian Eisler with a third had to fight his teammate, Horatio Calquin, all through the back half of this race. Calquin settled for fourth, just outside the podium. Nathan Lewis, unfortunately, from what we can tell, copped a penalty and wound up in fifth. Uribe went up six places from 12th to 6th spot, and then you've got Fredes, who finished 7th behind him. Michel Ferraris was P8 and Mark McDonald in 9th. And we mentioned him before, Byron Daly from 20th up to 10th.
And then in 11th place was Ted Lowendick. Unfortunately lost one position from his starting position. Then Michael Overbay finished 12th after he served a penalty in this round. Mauricio Cuero, unfortunately, an aggressive, somewhat impatient move at the start of the race ruined his race. He finishes an unlucky 13th. Steve Gaori, a couple runs to the pits in 14th. Eric Luke, 24th to 15th, followed by Kenny Rodriguez in 16th rather. Then Sean Duhamel, the last car on the lead lap, in 17th. Ciso Bagai, 18th. Sean Romig unfortunately crashed in the pits down to 19th. And David Holland rounds out the top 20 with some mysterious damage that we never actually saw. Then 21st, Rodrigo Munoz. 22nd, Hugo Galaz. And then 23rd and 24th, Dave McDonald and Chris McGrath out on lap 1.
While we wait for the drivers to hop on over to talk to them about the race here, I have to admit, Joe, that in the middle it seemed to get a little bit boring, but certainly picked up at the end, and we got a stunner. And in fact, Munoz was part of the excitement in that one. Looks like he is ready to talk to us in second place here. So why don't we speak to the 3-2-1 driver real quick and see how he managed to make so many overtakes to get up onto the podium. Paulo, my goodness, you worked for that champagne today. How is it?
Absolutely, it's fantastic. It's one of my best drives for sure.
We kept. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just a fantastic feeling, honestly.
Now, we had our questions. You know, we saw you jumping through many cars when you had to climb back through to get back to where you started. But then once you got there, we kind of wondered, okay, well, can he catch the leaders? When you got through that group, did you have that in mind? Did you think, I can get to the podium, guys, now?
Yeah, sort of, because I saw, I think it was Ferrari, Eisler, and Calvin fighting for third place. So I knew I was able to catch them, but then Nathan was, I think, another 4 or 5 seconds up the road, and Rodrigo was already gone. So I knew the win was out of the question unless something catastrophic happened to Rodrigo. I knew it was going to be hard to catch Nathan, and I really didn't want to pass him like it happened after all that effort, but I'll take P2, honestly.
I can see why. Now, speaking of catastrophic, well, we know that Modoff was not here today. And then, of course, Cuero had what we think is potentially a penalty at the start of the race and having to come in. So that leaves you making a leap forward, though you still got some ground to make up on Mies naturally. So looking forward with 2 rounds left after this, what's the plan?
Well, I'll have to check the results and everything to see how many points behind Rodrigo this puts me. But Barcelona, not one of my strongest tracks. I don't like the track at all, and this is Le Mans week on IMSA, so I've been doing a lot of that. And after that, it's Nürburgring GP, which I love, but I've never raced in prototype cars, so it's going to be definitely an interesting challenge. But for sure, I'm just going to get my 100%.
Well, we look forward to seeing that, because if today was 100%, you'll definitely be giving us a show. Congratulations on a podium, sir.
Thank you so much, Joe and everyone.
That was Paulo Munoz, winner, or not sorry, not the winner here today, second place. The winner is actually with Joseph Tebben. Rodrigo Mies running away with everything.
Yep, a dominant win. The gap at the line was 13.1 seconds. You can be honest with us. Was it a little bit boring having that big of a gap this whole time?
Yeah, hello guys. Monza, it's a track that I won't say that it's boring because the car is running with so low downforce that it's a challenge, especially on Ascari. The car was so loose, so it was a challenge to keep even the car on the track. So it wasn't boring from that point.
And we saw at the start, Mauricio Cuero, we think he jumped the start and got a penalty. Were you guys trying to work together there and the plan didn't quite work out?
Yeah, we always work together, but Nathan's reaction to my start wasn't the best, so Mauricio got second before the line and got a penalty, but it was a mistake from that point of view. We didn't work like we should. I think Mauricio should have lived a little bit to not go out into second so fast, but it won't happen again. Anyway, Mauricio had a good race, finished in 13 after staying last, so it was a very good race for him too. A very good comeback.
Yep, and it was a very dominant drive up front for you. I am not entirely sure how many wins you've had this season, but I believe this puts you in the lead of the championship overall.
Yeah, I think it's my second win. It's good to be back on the first place. But it has a little bit of bitterness because Karl Modov didn't show up today. He's one of he was one of the main rivals. So I think it's now up to me, Paulo Munoz, and Mauricio. So we're looking up to win, to have more wins, so we can win the championship. So it's a good strike for the morale for the next races.
Yep, and as the winner, I'm sure you had plenty of people help you get here. Would you like to send out some thanks?
Yeah, I want to say thanks to my team, to my teammates too, to my family that was watching, my mom, my dad, my brothers, to my friends, and yeah, that's all, guys.
All right, that was our race winner, Rodrigo Mies. And to take us out of the broadcast, here is Joe Peak.
Yep, just a couple of Joes that are going to close things out, and we're going to do that by thanking our sponsors. Of course, Simulation Motorsports Affinity, SIMSA. They can be found at simsa.net if you want to get involved with the global sim racing community. And then if you want to make your rig better and more impressive and immersive, check out ButtKicker. They can be found at thebuttkicker.com. They got all kinds of cool stuff to help make your rig better. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts that we've got listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lamont, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Joseph, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com or check out our social media, which includes Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, we got a merchandise store, and that is simply gsrc.storenvy.com. Link is in the description below, right next to our subscribe button, so make sure and click that. The next race, off to Barcelona. That'll be Tuesday, November 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.